very incredible and very important piece of legislation to kind of provide some financial assistance or financial support to those who've been discriminated against in the past, directly or indirectly. We have representatives from the Windsor Group here tonight, Mr. Jonathan Givens, to give us more insight into exactly what it is that this program is, how do we be a part of it, answer any questions, concerns, and the whole nine. So without further ado, I don't have all the information. I'm gonna pass it on to Mr. Jonathan Givens.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, you had a perfect intro. The Inflation Reduction Act that Congress used to fund this program with $2.2 billion. So the entire Discrimination Financial Assistance Program, it ends January 13th. So if you're going to write down anything or type down anything, January 13th is the date to remember. All applications need to be submitted by then. You got 3 ways that you can submit applications. You can print them out, fill in a paper copy and mail them in. You can do it online, which has its advantages if you're comfortable. I work with a lot of farmers, all ages, a lot of people are more comfortable just doing it on paper, and nothing wrong with that. If you are comfortable doing stuff online, there are some advantages to doing the application online as far as you set up your account, you'll use your email and then create a password, just like setting up any other online account, and it'll save your application. So you can work on it a little bit at a time, leave it, go do something else. It automatically saves all of your progress. And it also is designed in a way that you can't progress beyond certain points if you're missing stuff. So online, it's nice because it keeps you from missing or not including things that you need to have, where when you're doing it on paper, obviously there's no one to tell you that you're missing something. Well, there's us, and that's something that we do and recommend for any farmer, all farmers that are participating and applying, is once you're done with the application, you can get a hold of me, you can get a hold of Caitlin, any other people at Windsor, and we can go over the application with people in person or over the phone, or just like this, where I had a couple appointments earlier today where just on Zoom or Teams, sharing screens, I could look through her application, go through it page by page, and everything looked really good except for a couple parts that we worked on. And then she felt more confident and comfortable submitting that after having one of us look at it. So the other advantage for online is you can track your progress of your application once it's submitted. So when you mail it in, you'll get confirmation from them that they received your application. But that's about all you'll get, all you'll hear of, unless there's a mistake, in which case they will reach out to you and give you a chance to correct or add anything that they need that you forgot. But keep in mind that that's only till January 13th. So we recommend, obviously, the sooner you can submit your application, the better, because they'll give you that chance to correct the application, but only up until the 13th. So if you turn your application in a week, 2 weeks before January 13th, that's plenty of time for them to get the application, look it over, and then reach out to you with any corrections you need to make. But if you're turning it in the day before the 13th, there's not going to be enough time for them to get a hold of you for any corrections by the time the midnight of the 13th Eastern Standard Time rolls around. So yes, if possible, try to get your application in a week, 2 weeks early if you can. And you can also track the progress of your online application, which is nice. So it'll tell you when it's being reviewed, when it's being looked at, each kind of step of the way. But again, most of the farmers, worked with hundreds of farmers since we started the program, and most seem to prefer doing it on paper. My wife's kind of that way. She likes having it in front of her and being able to mark on it and write on it and things like that. And nothing wrong with that. I'll put a couple links in the chat. One, I'll put the link for the printable application version, and I'll also put a link for the online application. And I'm also going to put my cell phone in the chat. So my name's Jonathan Givens, and part of the Windsor Group. Windsor's contracted by the USDA to provide outreach and technical assistance for this program. And our help, our assistance is free. The application process is free. Nothing should cost you anything. I know there's plenty of lawyers knocking doors, trying to get business, trying to charge people to get their applications done for them. And there's definitely nothing wrong with taking that route. Just keep in mind it is free. So I know lawyers are expensive. I've talked to several people where lawyers they talked to wanted 40% of any financial award that they were awarded, which is insane to me. A lawyer wanting 40% of the total funds distributed through this discrimination for putting together the application, a couple documents, that's quite a big percentage. But some people are more comfortable going that route if they feel like they have a really complicated situation or case or what have you. So let me go ahead and put the link in the chat for this. Link right here is for the printable. So this is the PDF. If you want to print out the application and fill it out, mail it in, or bring it to our local office. We got a Petersburg office. That's the only Virginia office. It's actually the only office out of most of the Southeast. Is a Florida office, but other than that, that's pretty much it. And this is the link for the online application if you want to apply online. So let me go ahead and get that in the chat as well.
So I'm sorry, but I'm not seeing anything in the chat show up.
Yeah, there's one link there so far. You don't see, that's not showing up for you?
All right, Ms. Nita, I'll email it to you if you don't see it.
Okay, great. Well, let me see a minute. Hold on. There's a message in here. Hold on. Yep, here it is. Yeah, it was a message saying, do I have it? I got it. Yeah, it was about something else. Now I see
cool.
it. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. So the first one is for the printable application. The second one is if you want to apply online, you just click that link to 22007 apply.gov, and you'll click apply here, and then you'll just follow the prompts to creating an account and applying that way. And then you'll need to upload documents by scanning and uploading if you're doing it online. And if you're doing it, the print version, you just print it out, fill it in, or type on it, however you want to do it. And I will, at the end of this, put the address in the chat that you'd be mailing applications to when you're done. And I'll also put the address of our Petersburg office. So if anybody wants to bring their application to the office itself, and also our office in Petersburg is open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day of the week. And you don't need an appointment. You can make an appointment, but you can go by anytime from 8 to 8 every day of the week and get help there. They have Wi-Fi. They've got some like work table stations for farmers that want to come in and work on their application there. They have this nice kind of open office space with rows for different people. You bring them their laptops or bring in their documents and things like that, work on their application, and then they can ask one of the TAs to help them if they get stuck on something or give them some feedback. So the office is a good resource. I know it's not close to everybody, but it's kind of as central as they can make it as far as the agricultural community. And putting that in the chat. This is the address for our brick and mortar Petersburg office. And again, hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week, no appointment needed. You can go in whatever you want, and they will help you with any questions you got. And I will also put my name and my cell phone in the chat. So I'm the lead outreach and also lead TA analyst. So you can feel free to, I'll put my email in there too, but feel free to text or give me a call. Texting is going to get you a lot faster response just because everything is kind of ramping up as we get closer to the deadline. And I'm usually getting 15 to 20 calls from farmers a day. And I just can't, usually my wait time right now is about 2 to 3 days before I can get a phone call back, but I can text back usually within, 30 minutes. So that's my cell. Feel free to text, and my email. I'll also respond to emails really fast. That's my email address.
Everybody else in the email and via text. We'll send the email out tomorrow with the recorded session as well as all your information.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Awesome. So I will go ahead and share screen and start kind of going through the application and just walking you guys through it. So breaking it down and making it a little bit more accessible. It's 40 pages. It looks intimidating. When I first, with Windsor, we got on the project and I first saw the application, I was intimidated. I was like, 40 pages seems a little excessive for a financial discrimination application. But in reality, you're only, any farmer applying at most will be filling out 10 to 15 pages, because a lot of the application is fill out part A if that's you, part B if that's you, part C. So each section will tell you what part of the application to fill out. So nobody is filling out 40 pages. And I feel like that always helps put some people at ease. They see 40 pages and they're just like, that's too much. So nobody is going to be filling out more than 10, 15 pages. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Do I have to be host to do that, or no? I can just share, right?
Yeah, I made you.
Oh yeah, you already did. Okay,
yeah.
Let me pull that up.
And could you explain a little bit as you get started just about who qualifies for it, so we know that?
Absolutely, and that's part of the application process itself. But in a nutshell, is that showing up right there?
Yes, sir.
Because I can do like a little PowerPoint that has like a little overview, but it might be easier just to explain and make it simple and not take time going through a PowerPoint on top of the application, because I know we don't have a ton of time and there's a lot of material to get through. But as far as qualifications, so this whole program is for farmers and anything that goes in that category, farmer, rancher, landowner, that experience discrimination from the USDA in their lending, the USDA's lending policies, habits, whatnot. So the two categories of people that will be applying for this program are people that farmers that either got a USDA loan and it was not great, and because of discrimination, higher interest, shorter term, half what they asked for, USDA fully aware that it wasn't enough for the operation of the loan, and knowing that they would probably default and then take their property. Because the more I do this, the more often I see how often the USDA has done that. And probably shouldn't say that when it's recording, but hey, that's what I've seen firsthand as far as different practices, different things that USDA has done in different lending with different farmers. So the whole thing is about discrimination, taking advantage and exploiting different groups. And as far as eligibility goes for this program specifically, it is for farmers that either got a USDA loan or tried to get a USDA loan and were declined for whatever reason. And that's the entirety of the application. So everybody will fit into one of those categories that's applying for this. So it's either farmers, and you don't have to be currently a farmer. You could have been a farmer way back in the day. But farmers, ranchers, landowners that either experience discrimination from the USDA as far as getting unfavorable loans or lending, or which is more often the case for the farmers I've worked with, farmers that were declined or told they didn't qualify, told they couldn't get a loan for bogus reasons. So that is who the application is for, and that's the category as far as eligibility. So farmers, ranchers, landowners who either got a loan from the USDA or were declined a loan from the USDA. So that's the entire focus of this application. There's a couple exception cases. For instance, people that never farmed but wanted to, like hypothetical farmers that they had a business plan, they had, their whole approach, and they tried to get a loan from the USDA and they said no, so they weren't able to ever actually farm. They too can actually apply for this. They won't get nearly as much as farmers, because the reasoning is farmers have actually sacrificed, time, money, and their livelihoods, where someone that wanted to farm but wasn't able to, it still cost them by not being able to do or pursue that livelihood. But since they never actually were farmers, they didn't sacrifice as much. So some people are surprised to find that out, that you don't actually have to be a farmer. If you wanted to be a farmer and tried to get a loan and got turned down, you can apply. You won't get as much as the farmers, but there are a couple exception cases. The other exception case is if you inherited a USDA loan debt from a parent or grandparent, you can apply. If you're still making payments on an existing USDA loan, that's a pretty uncommon one. I haven't run into it myself, but it does cover that. So that is pretty much the overview of who the application is for and who qualifies. Any questions before jumping into the application itself? And I'll go into more detail on eligibility and things like that, but just as kind of a preface, does that cover the gist of what the application's about?
Yes.
So, okay, I just have one question. So you have to have proof that you actually applied.
No, you don't need proof that you applied for a loan. And the reason being, a lot of the times there was no proof. I've talked to hundreds of farmers that went into a loan office and said, hey, I'm looking to get some kind of help with my farm. And the loan officer said, well, I wouldn't even bother applying. You're not going to qualify. And so they left. So they have zero proof. You don't need proof. Just you saying that you tried to get a loan, or even saying, you went in and talked to someone and you didn't even get that far because they said you didn't qualify. That's plenty for this application. You don't need any kind of documentation. It helps if you have something, but the thing is, most people didn't get official letters declining their loan application. I've talked to very few people that actually have the FSA didn't give, they avoided giving out documentation that kind of, because then they have to be accountable for it. It's a lot easier for them to just say, you're not going to qualify, I wouldn't bother, because then they don't have to write anything down, which is why recently they've just passed a law where they can't do that anymore. And no matter what they tell a farmer that comes in, they have to give them a receipt of whatever they told them, because they're realizing they've done that partly through this program. They're starting to realize, and other things that they're finding out, that there's 90 some percent of farmers that have walked into a loan office agent, were told they didn't qualify and were given nothing in writing at all. And that's why you don't need anything in writing to prove that you did, because they already know most farmers aren't going to have anything, because they weren't giving documentation of any kind. If the loan officer was just trying to get the guy to leave and didn't want to, waste his precious time, and just said, man, you're not going to qualify for XYZ. So, I don't know why you're going to waste your time. And so they leave, and there's no documentation. And that's the way that the loan officer prefers it, because they're not accountable if they don't have to document that they just, got rid of another farmer telling him he shouldn't bother applying because he's not going to qualify. So no, you do not need proof that you ever stepped foot into a loan office agent's office. Just you saying that you went and talked to, or made attempts to get funding, get a farm loan of some kind. Just you saying that is enough. No documentation is required proving that you applied for a USDA loan, because a good chunk of people didn't get that far because the loan officer told them they didn't qualify, don't bother. And so that's what they put on their application. When you get to that point, when they're asking, to describe the steps you took to get a loan, I've had plenty of applicants that are like, I went in to talk to the loan officer, agent, about getting, operating loan for my farm. Said, don't waste your time. You don't qualify. And so I left, and that's all they have to write, because that's all that happened. And there's not going to be any documentation because they didn't get that far. And a lot of people didn't, So does that answer that question? Yeah, you don't need any proof. And that's a good question to ask in general, just because this isn't a trial. This isn't a legal case. And that helps some people put it into perspective. In a trial, and there's actually, if I remember while we're going through, I'll actually point out that section, because they actually spell it out in the application, which I like. In a trial, the legal term for the amount of evidence you have to provide to win a case is a preponderance of evidence. So in a trial, preponderance meaning overwhelming evidence that what you're saying is true. That's what's required in a trial. In this, it specifically says you're not required to supply preponderance of evidence. All you're required, the legal term for what is needed for this, is a reasonable amount. So enough that a reasonable person could conclude that discrimination happened with this application. So the point I'm making is that the barrier of entry for this is way lower than for a trial, if that makes sense. It's a lot easier to, you don't have to provide as much, you don't have to do as much as if it were a lawsuit or trial or anything like that. This is a lot simpler and easier to go through as far as looking at it in legal and trial terms. Michael, you got a question?
Yeah, a quick question, just on that basis. I know from my experience, I probably never even went to a loan officer because of the experiences that other farmers I knew had. And I've been to a couple of auction sales from loans gone bad, and that greatly discouraged me from even trying to apply. Is that an acceptable?
Yes, yes. I'm glad you asked, because that's the other scenario that so many farmers that I've worked with are in, where, if I'm a Black farmer and my friend's a Black farmer, my brother's a Black farmer, the guy down the street, we're all in the same community. He applied, he applied, he applied. Guess what? All of them were told no. Then why am I going to even try? Because I'm in the same situation as brother, friend, guy down the street. Um, we know it's a racket. We know that they're turning down farmers like us. So I didn't bother going in and applying because given the discrimination that was so prevalent, I knew it was a waste of time. So yeah, you can still apply for this. And when you get into the details of what steps you took to get a loan, that's where you would put exactly kind of how I just said it. Because of the discrimination that farmers like us were experiencing, nobody like me and in similar situations and even better situations, say my brother had better credit, better farm, and he was turned down. And the terms of a white farmer that applied that we know about were identical, and surprise, surprise, he wasn't turned down. So me with worse credit than my brother, less capital, and a smaller farm, why would I take the time to go and apply? Because if you shot him down, I know you're going to shoot me down. And I'd rather not go through, the depressing, experience just so you guys can shut down another person that deserves help that you're not going to help. So yeah, definitely can still apply. If discrimination was a factor such that applying was a hopeless endeavor based on the experiences you had with people in your community and things like that, that is 100% a reason you put on the application for why you would have applied if you knew that there was a chance anything would be done. But because of your experiences, because of community members, family, friends, other people with farms that you talked to, and you knew that you're in the same position or maybe even worse. And if all of them were shown the door, you certainly were going to get shown the door too. So it's still something where you obviously would have loved a loan. And if there was a chance you could have gotten one from your farm, you would have done so. But brother didn't, sister didn't, friend didn't, guy down other side of the county didn't. I know I'm not going to. I'd rather not go through that really unpleasant experience of having someone talk down to me and tell me I don't qualify when I know I do, and I know they do too. And we're not getting the loans, we're not getting the support regardless. And that's kind of what this whole thing is about that discrimination. And obviously it's prevalent enough in all kinds of things, but you don't get to a program like this with a funding of $2.2 billion with a max payout of $500,000 per farmer. Now, obviously, I doubt any farmer in this program will get the max $500,000 because it's proportionate to the total number of farmers applying. But still, you're not going to get to a $2.2 billion funded program of discrimination by the USDA against lending against farmers if there isn't a lot of evidence and a lot of, you know what I mean? We wouldn't get this far if there wasn't a lot of good reasons. So it's in a lot of ways, they know that this wouldn't exist if they didn't know. We wouldn't have gotten this far in a program like this if there wasn't a lot of evidence and a lot of information that made it clear that there was rampant discrimination in their lending policies and procedures and dealings with different minorities and different groups of people. So I'll start going through the beginning of the application, and I'll try to go quick. If I go too quick, just tell me to slow down. And it's a long application, but I'm going to try to just focus on the majority of cases. So the stuff that will probably pertain to you guys, and not waste time on these exception cases that I hardly ever run into. Unless someone sees that it pertains to you, and stop me and I'll elaborate. But I know we're doing another one of these January 2nd. And if we need to, we can do another one before that period of time, if there's interest and if there's more people that want to come and have kind of a session learning about the application of the program. So just going through the application itself. So step one, real simple, just your information. Don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just putting your name, address, the typical stuff. And for people that ever went under different legal names, the bottom 3 rows is where you can put additional names. Say you're a farmer and 20 years ago you went by your maiden name, but now you go by this name. So you can have all names accounted for when documents that you have different versions of your name on them. So you can include that in the bottom 3 rows. That's all step one is. Every section of the application, each step will have the supporting documentation request section, which is very important. The box and then the list of documents that will fulfill the requirement for this step will be listed just like this. And you see where it says must, and it's in bold and underlined. So every supporting documentation request box will either say must or may. So where it says must, you need to provide some kind of document for this part. Where it says may, it's optional, but if you have something that fits that category, then submit it because it will strengthen your application. But must is you need to have something, may is optional. So for step one, you need 2 forms of ID to verify your identity. And so you just check which 2 you want to use: social security card, driver's license, and there you go. Make photocopies of those to submit the application. Then for proof of social security number, since you're already using your social security card, you can use it again. And that's another thing. You can use the same document to fulfill the requirements for multiple steps. So for example, you can use a social security card as one of the 2 for identifying. And then when it's asking for a document to prove your social security number, you can use that same social security card for this section as well, and just check the same thing. So there's a lot of documents that people end up using that you can use for multiple steps. If it's on the list, you can use it. And then the other part of step one is just alternative contacts. It's optional, completely optional. It's just if people want an alternative contact on there, if they can't get a hold of you, they will reach out to this person to try to get a hold of you. Some people just skip it. It's optional. Some people put a spouse, a friend, a relative on there. And then for number 2, you can also designate someone that can discuss the application with USDA. Again, optional if you want someone else to have access or be able to speak about the application with USDA. You can specify that there. If not, again, optional. You can skip it. And C, this is for information about anyone helping you prepare, helping you with the application. This is where you can put my info. It's not required, but you could put Jonathan Givens, Windsor Group. You don't need to fill out everything. Down where it says technical assistance provider, you just check technical assistance provider. But if you leave this blank, it doesn't really matter. It's it really just, I think it just helps Windsor Group look like they're doing their job because they're listed on applications and they're supposed to be helping people with applications. But it's not like your application is going to be rejected if you don't fill it out. But yeah, just put Jonathan Givens, firm name, Windsor Group, type of help, technical assistance provider, and that's plenty. That's all step one is. Simple, simple, simple. Step 2, type of applicant. So this gets into what type of applicant are you? Most people will be doing the first or second box in this step. 99% of people will be the first box or the second box. The first box is if you're applying you're the farmer, it's only your farm, and you're applying, there's no co-owner, you check the first box. And for each section, you see where it says the first box, it says self, and I was the only USDA farm loan borrower or would be borrower. And then parentheses, it says you don't need to fill out all the rest of step 2, skip to step 3. If you do the second box, you see how it says fill out part B. So every step will be like this. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where you won't fill out every single page. So for step 2, if you check the second box, you're only filling out part B. You don't have to worry about C. You don't have to worry about D. You just fill out the part of this step that is corresponding to the box you check. And that helps a lot because it seems kind of simple, straightforward, but the application is so long, the pages stretch out. And so it really helps keep organized, because once you're kind of going through looking for different things, you'll see like you didn't put anything in part C and you're like, oh, do I need to fill out part C? And so if you're ever not sure, go back to the beginning, see what box you checked, see what part it tells you to fill out. And you can even write on your application, say you check the second box, over part C, you can put skip, over part D, you can put skip, just as a reminder to yourself that you don't need to worry about those steps. So number 1 is if you're applying as a farmer and you're the only owner of the farm. The second option is if you're applying as a farmer and there's a co-owner, co-borrower. Wherever you see co-borrower, you can think in your mind co-borrower / co-owner. And that's what you would check if, say, you had, it's your farm with your spouse or with your brother. So then you would check the second option, that the type of applicant that you are yourself, and I had a co-borrower / co-owner. Then you fill out just part B. And if you have more than one co-borrower, if there's more than one co-owner, and that's fine, you'll just list how many there are. And so again, most 99% of applicants that I've worked with, it's one of the first 2 boxes. The third box is if you are part of a legal entity. It's pretty uncommon. Most people applying for this, they're smaller farms, family farms. But if you happen to be part of, like a corporation with a board and managing a farm or a group of farms, then you would fill out part C. But again, that's pretty uncommon. I haven't seen it too many times. The last 2 options are even more uncommon. That's if your parent or grandparent had a USDA loan and you inherited the farm and the loan and still are making payments on the USDA loan. Pretty unusual circumstance. I haven't met anybody that fits into that category. But if that applies to you, then that's the box you would check. But pretty sure everybody here and probably everybody that watches this recording will be box 1 or box 2. So if you do box 1, you're done with step 2. That's all you got to do. If you did box 2, because you got co-owners, co-borrowers, then let's see, you go down to fill out part B, and then how many co-borrowers, co-owners are there, not including yourself. So say it's you and your spouse, you put 1 co-borrower, and then you just fill out the spouse's information, name, address, just straightforward stuff. And that's it. That's all step 2. And then, if it was one of the other boxes, the corresponding letter that goes with that box. Step 3, eligibility for this program. So this section is just asking questions about the farm, the farm, whether it's still running, what years it was operated, that kind of stuff. Whether you own, lease, or both own and lease. And it asks, do you own or lease the farmland during the period of discrimination? Now, for most people that I've worked with, that period of discrimination, pretty much, I mean, it can encompass the entire length of owning the farm. Or some people will put it at start the period of discrimination as far as the year they tried to get a loan, get assistance, and were told no, or told they didn't qualify. And so they go from that year and every year up past that until either today or 2021, because that's the cutoff, or till whenever the farm, they sold the farm, or they stopped farming. So own, lease, or both owned and lease. Just check the one that applies. Then it's just asking for where the farm's located, street address. Tons of farms don't have a street address, in which case you can just put a crossroads, or just the best description you can of where the farm's located. So a lot of farms don't have street addresses, might not even have a crossroads, but it's in Halifax County, 3 miles down Highway 305, something like that. So they have an idea where the farm is. City, state, zip, county. And number 3, it's going to ask for FSA farm number or tract number. You don't have to have one. Lots of people don't. If you do, it makes it a little bit easier because they can immediately verify the farm where it is because it's in their database. But again, you'll notice it says note. For number 3, you go down, it says note, the FSA farm number or farm tract number will assist in processing your application. You don't have, if you didn't have one or no longer know what it is, that is not disqualifying. So they really want you to have one. They're gonna ask you a bunch of questions about it, but you do not have to have one or know what it is. But they'll ask. And that's why you look over at the documentation request, right? For the first part, for documenting that you own the farm or lease the farm, you must supply something that reflects that. So it'll be a copy of the deed, any tax records, any producer farm report, really any document that shows the operation of a farm, like farm supplies, equipment, things like that. Just anything that shows that the farm is operating or was operating at the time. But for the second part, for the FSA farm number, if you don't have it, it's saying you can use the deed or property tax records or lease or any of those in lieu of not having an FSA farm number. So you can pretty much use the same document above, below, and for the FSA number question. And even still, it's may submit, so it's still not required. The top part is required for the farm itself. This will help, but is not required. Then it just asks, what years did you farm or ranch? 1990 to 2010, whatever pertains to your farming history, your situation. What's the name of your farm or ranch? A lot of people, it's a family farm. It doesn't have a name. It's just fine. It doesn't need a name. Robert's Farm, just whatever you call it. And then next page, just asking for a few sentences of description of the farm. And again, nothing crazy. They'll give you a huge box. You only need a couple sentences. They're just, we grew tobacco, cotton. We had some livestock, pigs, cows, and that was the kind of farm that we had. Just brief description of what kind of farm you have, crops, livestock, that kind of thing. And then it'll ask what your main crops or livestock were, and then what your one main crop or livestock was. So again, just pretty simple questions about your farm. And another documentation request. Again, if you don't have an FSA farm number. If you have an FSA farm number, you can ignore the whole thing. If you don't, again, this is optional. It's not required. It'll help the application. So lease from, if you're leasing the farm, any tax documents, tax payments on the farm, anything like that. And also, where it says statement under penalty of perjury from a non-family member who knew you were a farmer, a lot of people use that. And there is an affidavit template that you can download. I'll put that link in the chat as well. It's just a simple, pretty much just a statement saying, I know that Robert farmed from 2010 to 2020, signed dated. That's it. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just non-family members saying that they were aware that you were farming at that period in time, and that works as a document, and that works in multiple areas too. Just having an affidavit if you don't have the particular document that they're asking for. That's all of, well, most of step 3. This is just more of the same. If you don't have an FSA farm number, please explain why. We never got one. The farm was burned down 30 years ago, and we have no access to the farm number, and neither do you, USDA, because you scrap your records every 10 years, which again, they know that. So they know that they're asking for information that they themselves don't have, because they do scrap records. I think it's every 10, 12 years. So if it's a farm that's no longer in existence and hasn't been over, 10, 12 years from now, they can't find the FSA number either. And that's why they can't insist that you give them one, because they can't themselves tell you what it is if they have it, if it's, older than 10, 12 years. And that's it for 3. And B, you can ignore. Again, B is that exception case for people that never farmed. They wanted to, they would have if they had gotten funding from a loan, but they didn't, so they were never able to actually have a farm, be a farmer. And people in this category won't get as much, but they can still apply and get something. And for everyone else, where you're filling out part A as the farmer, you ignore B and just pay attention. Applicants who never farmed. So it doesn't apply to anybody that is applying as a farmer or that had been a farmer. And that's why, again, at the top, fill out part A if you've ever been a farmer. Fill out part B if you intended to be a farmer but were unable to do so. So you can skip part B completely. More pages that you don't have to worry about. And that's all of step 3. Step 3 is just about your farm. Step 4 is eligibility for the program. So like we talked about,
I have a question.
Earlier, yes.
Before you go on that, I raised my hand, but I don't know if, because
I'm sorry.
I'm not seeing the group
see
either. I've got 2 screens up looking at things. So for example, if you were discriminated against and didn't farm, but now you have started farming, still haven't gotten the loan, and you still fit that criteria, which one do you fill out?
But you are currently farming?
I am currently farming, but did not farm during the discrimination period.
I'd still, again, because you want to fill out the farmer section because they get more money, but I would include those details.
Okay.
And there's other sections that ask about the discrimination. And so that's really, really good information to have when you're talking about the discrimination, because that will also tie into your economic loss. It'll tie into a bunch of stuff. So that's really good information to have, and that will really help your application. But you're still applying as a farmer, because you still want to get max amount from this.
Okay, good.
And people that have never farmed are going to get a lot less. So even though the discrimination happened before you were able to be a farmer, still fill it out as the farmer. But when you get into the steps you took to get lending, that's really more perfect than you realize, because that increases the calculated economic loss for your case, because you can also calculate how much more money you would have made if you had gotten funding way back when you wanted it. And you can factor that in with real dollar values from the farm that you currently are using. So,
Okay.
and I'll explain that more in step 6 with economic loss, but that is very, 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 very good information to have that will be a lot of help to your application. It's perfect, actually. But yes, still fill out as the farmer, not someone that wanted to farm, because that's for people that never ever became farmers and will get significantly less. But very good question, and that information very, very important. Help your application a lot when you go into economic loss. So for we got a question from the iPad Pro. Is that, I don't see your
Yes,
name.
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a vision issue, so I'm a little bit challenged.
Oh, no
We've been
worries. No
farming
worries,
for a
man.
while. We've been farming for a while, and what we tried to do is we wanted to try to grow our farm up into a meat processing plant. So to do that, we actually created another LLC in the name of the meat processing plant, and we went to and everything, all discrimination we've experienced has been in the name of the meat processing plant. So how do I apply?
I would, okay, so
Specifically, specifically, what happened is they told us that the first FSA representative told us he has no problem that they would back us with the USDA plant, and then he got transferred someplace else. And another next guy came in, wouldn't even accept the application. He said I was wasting my time coming in, and he found all kind of excuses and all kinds of stuff like
yeah.
that. But the application process, so I mean, so what do I do?
Yeah, no, really good question. That's also, it's just cool hearing the details, because all of the things both of you are telling me are things that will help your application a lot. Just follow-up question. Do you own a farm plus the meat packing place? So are there two things
Yes,
that you own?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
when you're because this program pays out to the individual. So you can, in your application, you can list multiple farms. So I would list the
Okay,
farm and the meat packing place. And then when you go into
okay,
detailing exactly why that is, and why that was created, and your steps for getting funding, that'll be perfect for the
okay,
application. And again, also um, increasing the economic loss section of the application, showing two things. One, that
okay,
you took incredible, you went to incredible lengths to try to get, do what they asked you to do, and it still wasn't enough, which really proves the point that for so many
mm,
people, no matter what they did, wasn't enough. But when you're listing, what I would do, and it's an interesting case, and I want to make sure that you're getting credit for both, even though the meat packing isn't a farm. Um, it's tied into this application because its sole existence was to help the farm and help the lending process. So when we went up
okay,
above, where in this section where it asks you information about your farm that we were just in,
yes,
what I'm talking about,
yeah,
like the address of your
yes,
farm, things like
yes,
that.
yes, I understand.
On your
Yes,
application,
mm-hmm.
I would, because there's some people that apply that have multiple farms or had two farms. I would do number one. I would break it into number one, number two. So for address, I would put number one, and I put the farm information, and then number two, I put the meat pack place information, and
Okay,
they'll lower later on in the application, they'll see why that's included. But I think it would be good to have it included at the beginning in this section, so it's already been established. So then when we go into the explanation of what happened and your experience, all of that comes into play as far as how it factors into the farm, the lending, the steps that you took. So I would list them both.
Okay.
And
All right.
there's more to it than that, but we haven't got there yet. But that's really, really,
Okay.
really, that's really good for your application. That shows a lot of different things that will help your application quite a lot, as well as increasing your economic loss. So they might wonder when they get to this part of the application, why is he including the meat pack place? And that's fine, because they'll know when they get to that part. And you can even go back and next to it, you can even in parentheses, see page, whatever. So you have it linked to kind of
Okay.
further explanation. But yeah, list both of
Okay.
them in part A with your farms. So you'll have number one and that, number two and that. So have addresses for both and descriptions of both. And then the explanation for why that is will follow in the later stages of the application. But that'll come into play
Okay.
in a couple different places. That'll come into play in step 5 and also in step 6. Anita, you got
Yes.
your hand raised?
My question is in regards to generational farms. My father
Yeah.
was a farmer, my grandfather was a farmer, and of course, they incurred discrimination also. Can
Yeah.
I file on behalf of them, even though they're deceased?
No, you should be able to. If they were fair at all, you would be able to. Were you a farmer yourself, or do you currently
I
have a
currently
farm?
farm. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So for you, what I would do is when you get into step 5 that talks about the discrimination and the experiences that you had, that's where I would include their experiences as well, because that will increase the strength of your application.
Okay.
Because even though the application is for the individual, that played a role in your experience as well. And so in step 5, when we get there, I'll kind of show where, but that's really good information to include in step 5. It might go into another step 2, but definitely step 5, because it helps establish the pattern, you know what I mean? And that it's not only affecting you, but it affected your parents, it affected your grandparents. And that's obviously had a generational effect that you're still feeling with your own experiences. So I always recommend applicants to include parent, grandparent, farm discrimination experiences along with their own experiences, because it contextualizes the application and it adds validity and strength to your application.
Beautiful. Thank you.
iPad Pro, was there another question, or is that still up from the last question? I think it's still up. If there's another question, shout out and I'll get your next question. I don't remember if the hand went down or
No,
not.
I'm finished.
Okay.
It was asked in the chat as well. If you could move the screen to like presentation mode, or get rid of that side screen so you can better see the application better. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just covering up the page numbers on the side. The application is only, or on your screen, is it covering up more than that?
I'm not.
Is that better?
See if you can move that.
Yeah,
that right, the screen to the left, where it says 10, 11, 12. That can be, I don't know if it'd be minimized, push to the side, to the left more.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. Let me see if
I know that's probably PDF.
Yeah, it's PDF, so I don't know how to minimize the sidebar to make this bigger. Yeah, as far as I know, I can't minimize that column unless you know a way that I can. But
I'm not gonna press you tonight, so I won't give you advice. So I'll just let you be.
Okay, sorry. There's probably a way to do it, but at least this way I can use that space for people raising their hands and asking questions. But the application.
Sorry, Raven has that hand raised as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Raven, did we get your question already? She can't unmute. Let me see if I can unmute her. If you're calling in, it's *6, and let me see. I'll try to unmute you here. You try to unmute now.
We're still waiting on them to unmute.
Yeah. She said, "Don't worry about it. Keep going. You can type in the chat.
Okay.
We can just add it there once
Okay.
you
Yeah, as soon as you unmute or you can just unmute yourself and interrupt me. Don't worry about it. If you got a question, you can just stop me and I'll pause and answer questions as they come up. Okay, so we're in step 4 for eligibility. So this is where it breaks down into pretty much 2 categories. And again, number 2 is not going to apply to most people. That's if you inherited a USDA loan that you're still making payments on from a parent or grandparent. So most people can skip number 2, but number 1, everybody will be in one of these groups for applying. So either you did get a USDA loan, and it was not a good loan and it had, bad terms, bad interest, whatnot. So if you did get a USDA loan, and there was still discrimination involved in the terms of the loan and how it was overseen, the first 2 options, you're going to select one of the first 2 options if you did get a USDA loan. And the only difference between direct lending and guaranteed lending, direct lending is where you go to the USDA to get a loan, and the USDA themselves give you the loan, give you the money. Guaranteed lending is where you go to USDA for a loan. They don't give you the money. They get a private bank to give you the money, and they back it or guarantee it. And it's almost always a worse interest rate, which is why they do it. And if you are one of the applicants that have a USDA loan, usually if you got your loan directly from the USDA, then you got a direct lending. If you got your loan, it was the actual money came from a private bank, but it was backed by the USDA, then that's a guaranteed loan. So you would check first box if your loan was direct from the USDA, second box if your loan was guaranteed lending backed by the USDA, but dispersed through a private bank. The third and fourth box, which are usually the majority, 3/4 of the applicants I work with, maybe more, are people that wanted a loan, attempted to get a loan, or like we talked about earlier, didn't actually apply because the discrimination was so pervasive that they knew it was a waste of time because of all of the other people in their community, relatives or friends, neighbors that were shot down. So if that's your category where you wanted a loan, but because of discrimination, were not able to get funding, unless you specifically know that you applied for lending that would be dispersed by a private bank, but backed by the USDA, then you do the fourth option. But if you don't know, or if you didn't even get that far, the default is direct lending. So if you wanted a loan, or you didn't even get that far in the process, then you can check the third box, attempted to participate in direct lending, because that's the default over guaranteed lending. Guaranteed, that's kind of a more exception, especially if you didn't get the loan. And usually you know if that was your case, but the default, if you don't know, it's more likely going to be direct lending. So you check that third box and then you fill out part C. Of course, if you got the loan and it was direct lending, you fill out part A and only part A. Second box, if you got the loan, it was guaranteed lending, fill out part B, only part B. I'll go through part C because that will more than likely cover the majority of people. It has in the past with the farmers that I've worked with. So that's the third option. You would have liked a loan. If you attempted to, whether you went into a loan office, talked to somebody and you didn't even get that far, they told you didn't qualify. If you did get that far and they declined you, or if because of discrimination, because of how hopeless it was, given the circumstances and situations of other farmers in similar situations around you, all of that would fall into the category of the third box, part C. So only part C. And again, like we talked about, this is why you don't end up filling out 40 pages. You're only filling out the part that applies to you for each step. So for step 4, you check the third box. You only got to worry about part C. You can skip through all the other parts. All right, so part C, it'll ask you your citizenship status. So U.S. citizen, just check U.S. citizen. And that's going to ask for what type of USDA farm loan did you seek? And you just check, it's any that apply or all that apply and whatever makes sense. So again, if you went in and you were looking for funding from the USDA, you were looking for a loan of some kind to help you with your farm, you didn't get through the whole loan application process because they told you didn't qualify, then you would check the one that applies as far as if you had been able to get a loan, what makes sense for the farm and for the situation that you were in at the time. So whether that would have been ownership loan, operating loan, and again, it could be more than one of these. If it was just trying to get softwood timber and soil and water for the land. So just check all that apply that makes sense as far as what you would have sought in a perfect world if you'd known that they were going to treat you fairly and give you a loan. Which loan makes sense as far as what loan would you have sought? So you check the ones that apply. Then number 3, describe the steps you tried to take to get a loan. This can be really elaborate. It can be really simple. I have some applicants where it's as simple as I went into a loan office. I've been farming for this many years. Was looking for funding to expand my farm, to rent this equipment or whatever the circumstance may be. Went in, talked to a loan officer for 30 seconds before he told me I didn't qualify, not to waste my time, and I left. So I have some applicants where this part is literally like 2-3 sentences. The more the better, but you don't need to write a book. Now, this is where the guy we were talking about earlier, where you have the meat packing plant, where you had that set up to try to satisfy the requirements of the loan you were trying to get. This is where you would put all of those details in, where it ties into why you have that meat packing place listed on top of the farm. This is one of the places where you would plug that in, and that's where, when they're going through the application, where it fits in and makes sense, where they're like, oh, because the guy told them that they would need the meat packing place if they were gonna give them the loan for the farm. And so you would just detail pretty much everything you just told me when we were talking about it. You detail that in number 3 right here. And for some people that knew it was hopeless based on the discrimination and based on what was happening in the community, I have some applicants that put, because of how prevalent the discrimination was and because of how many people I knew, a brother, sister, friend, neighbor, different people in similar situations with similar farms or bigger farms that were shot down right off the bat. I knew that the discrimination was so pervasive and the system was so against me that it made no sense for me to go in and attempt a loan application just to be told not to bother, like everybody else had been told. So it can be a range of things, just depending on what your situation, how it played out for you and your situation. And for number 4, this and 5, what was the amount of the loan you sought? Again, this is if you had gotten a loan, how much would you have asked for? How much, would have made sense? And obviously, if it was in 1980, $2,000 in 1980 is worth a lot more in 2021. So whatever the amount of the loan, had you been given a loan that you would have wanted, you put that amount there. When did you try to get the farm loan? It doesn't have to be an exact date. It could be, April of 1980 or April of 1990, just the approximate time period of when you tried to get funding. It could be an exact date, but it can be just a year and a month, or a year and a week and a month. And then it says, and this needs special attention. Number 6, who did you speak to at the USDA? This makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and for good reason. I work with a group in Halifax where one of the loan officers he's a black farmer himself, and he's actually not there anymore. He actually couldn't stop. What's that? Sorry, was there a question? Somebody might have unmuted on accident. All right, I'll keep going. Let me just check chat real quick to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Got the slides. Hey, how's it going? Okay, so yeah, so who did you speak to at the USDA? You don't need to put, and that's why it says in parentheses, if you have this information. A lot of people are not comfortable sharing the exact name and title of the person they talk to. A lot of people don't know, especially if it was in 1980 or 1990. It's not like people really want to remember that person or even that time of their life. So you can be as vague as, I spoke to someone in the FSA county office, or I spoke to a loan officer in the FSA county office. That's as specific as it needs to be. You can put the specific name and title, but you do not have to. Whatever you're comfortable with sharing. And then was a decision made on your loan application? So yes, you were told you didn't qualify. And this is one of those parts where it actually doesn't matter if it's yes or no, because they have the same result. So for instance, if you never got to the actual loan application process because they told you you didn't qualify before you even got that far, then you would put no and later on detail that they told you didn't qualify, so you didn't even get that far. Or you could still put yes and they told you you didn't qualify and didn't get that far on the application. So I guess you would do yes in either case, even if you didn't start the loan application, if they told you you didn't qualify. And then in A, that's where you would put went in to try to get funding for my farm and told I didn't qualify. And that was the decision that was made. And then asks, when was the decision made? Again, it doesn't have to be the exact date, just approximate time when makes sense, when you would have wanted or looked for lending assistance for your farm. And that's all of this step. Again, was just C. D is just the same thing, but if it's guaranteed lending. So if you did C, that's all you got to do for that entire step. Skip all the rest, and then you move on to step 5. And 5 and 6, those are the last two kind of big steps. And after 6, it's all downhill from there. They're all easy, quick little steps. Like step 7 is just, did you participate in any other farm programs? Yes or no. And then step 8 is just optional. It's just literally extra pieces of paper if you need more paper because one of the boxes wasn't big enough in the application. You can continue writing on this template. So step 8 isn't even really a step. It's just extra sheets of paper if you need it. Step 9 is just the tax information, filling out the W-9 and submitting that with the application. And step 10 is just signing. So those 3 steps are, really, really quick. So even if we don't get to them, they're steps that take 5-10 minutes tops. 5 and 6 take some time though. So we're not going to be able to get through all of 5 and 6. But I will try. I don't like rushing through step 5 because step 5 is the heart of the entire application. Everything else is just fact checking, right? What kind of farm? Where was the farm? What did you farm? What time period did you farm? Did you try to get a loan and were told no, or did you actually get a loan? Right? They're all just kind of yes or no questions or either or question. But step 5 is where you tell your story, right? This is where I tell people to probably spend the most time, if not the most time, to take their time, because this is where you get to share your experiences as far as the discrimination from the USDA and their lending and the way they treat people. And I've heard tons of horror stories. A person that got a loan and they were out there at their farm asking questions, over managing, like in their business constantly, like they never were for any of the other typical farmers, white farmers. And it's like a form of almost bullying. They got the loan, so why are you constantly over here asking to see this and asking to see that? So there's all kinds of forms that discrimination can take in this context for USDA lending and farming. So because I want to get to step 6 real quick, so I will kind of move through this quickly. I really don't like doing that because of how important it is, but essentially you're just going to follow the instructions. You're just going to break down the experience of discrimination that you had with USDA and as a farmer. And it'll ask for basis of discrimination. And so you just check all that apply: race, color, national origin, which is that's for Hispanic, Latino, or indigenous tribes, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity. So you just check the ones that apply for you. Religion, was that a basis of discrimination? Age, marital status, disability, reprisal, retaliation. And so you check the ones that apply to your situation. Then it'll ask for a number of instances of discrimination. You don't need more than one. It's kind of up to you how you do it in your application. Some people will do one, and when they kind of write it out throughout the step, it will encompass a lot of different things and a lot of different years, and they'll just kind of wrap it up into kind of one instance because of a range of time. Some people break it down into specific instances, and it's not like more instances is better and more money or anything like that. It's just about telling your story with as much detail as you can, and you can frame it however you'd like. So if you want to break it down into instances and say 8 instances, then you're going to copy off this section and then just kind of repeat the steps with instance 2, then instance 3, and so on. If you are going to wrap everything up into one instance in a frame of time, then you do one instance and use the pages in the step included in the application to detail everything that pertains to that period of discrimination. So completely up to the individual how they want to break that down. But it's going to follow this kind of template. So it'll ask, and again, you'll print out copies of this if you have additional instances that you want to go through. So it'll ask on each sheet which instance number. So assuming this is the first instance, you put 1, then describe the instance of discrimination. So this is where you tell your story, your experiences with discrimination in dealing with the USDA, FSA loan officers, lending, trying to get help, that kind of thing. And each A, B, they're just asking different kind of questions about your story. So for B, describe why you think you were eligible for the loan. Again, that could be pretty simple. I farmed all my life. My father was a farmer. My mother was a farmer. My grandparents were farmers. That's why I think I was eligible for a farm loan. I had a farm. What could be more eligible? I have people that they have like one sentence here because that's more than enough to be eligible for a loan as a farmer. It'll ask again for this instance of discrimination, which applies. So you just check what applies, which will probably be the same that you checked at the beginning. It's kind of redundant. What makes you think the USDA's actions were discriminatory? Just more of your story, as detailed or vague as you're comfortable sharing with your experience, whether it was one instance, whether it was over a period of time. Just describing the details. When and where did you experience the discrimination? So if you're filling this out as a range of time, then you can just, 1980 to 1990, location, county office, or farm, depending on, or both. And what were the reasons given for the discriminatory action you're describing? And this can be really short too for a lot of farmers that I've helped. No reasons were given. They were told they didn't qualify. Why? You don't qualify. Why not? You just don't. That's all the loan officer gave them. So that's all they have to write. I wasn't given a valid reason. I was told I don't qualify. And when asking for a better answer, I wasn't given one. And here in H, who committed the act of discrimination against you? Again, I don't like that they ask this. You do not need to include detailed information of the exact person. And again, most people don't know the name of the loan officer that discriminated against them 35 years ago. It's just unrealistic. But even if you do, you don't have to share that. You can just describe, it was a loan officer agent at the county office of that county or whatever. If you want to include, include as many details as you'd like. Just don't feel that you'll be penalized by not sharing the name of the exact person, much less if you even remember the name. Because for a lot of almost most farmers, they're not trying to take notes of a horrible experience. I mean, it's bad enough that it happened, but it's not something that they really want to take detailed notes on a horrible event or experience. So if you have the information you want to share it. If you don't, then you can keep it vague, whatever you're comfortable with. And this is another one that's kind of dicey. Did anyone else observe the discrimination? And for most people that I've worked with, no, it was you and the loan officer. Anybody else that might have observed it might have been other workers there, and certainly don't have their names. And it's not like they're going to be of any help anyways. But if you happen to have had friend, relative with you, then you can put them down. But again, you don't have to have anything there. A lot of applicants, no one was there, no one observed. It was just them and the loan officer. Is there any other information that you feel supports your claim that this instance of discrimination occurred? And this is just kind of a catch-all. If there's any additional information that you didn't already, and usually by the time you get to this point, you've really detailed everything that happened. But it's just kind of like extra room if there's anything else that you want to add. And that's all of section 5. It's that template. So if it's one instance of discrimination, you fill out each section in step 5. And if you want to put down multiple instances, then you print out step 5. And for as many instances as you have, say you have 3, so use instance 1, use these, and then the first copy for instance 2, and then the second copy for instance 3. However you want to break it down. And again, some people kind of wrap it all into one instance, and just totally up to you how you want to break it down, how you want to write about it, how you want to share it. I know we're just getting over time. Step 6, I'm gonna do one last bit really quick because it's really important. And if I'm gonna end it, I want to end it with the last most important part of the application I can share with you. This is where you go into dollars and losses and quantifying it. Now, for most people that didn't get a loan because of discrimination, the first couple questions won't apply. So yes, I was a farmer rancher. Did you lose any land because of the loan? No, because I didn't get the loan. Did you lose your home? And again, if you got a loan, I've talked to plenty of people that lost land, lost homes from the loan that they got. But if you never got the loan, then the first couple won't apply. Did you use your home as collateral? No, because you didn't get the loan because they wouldn't give it to you. So no. 4, were there any garnishments or deficiency judgments because of you defaulted on the USDA loan? No, because I didn't get the loan. So if all those are no, everybody make a note for 5. Circle 5, star 5. I can't emphasize enough. One of the most important things to include in the entire application, number 5, especially if the 2, 3, and 4 questions don't apply to you, which they won't if you never got the loan. 5 is where you put in and calculate the economic loss as a result of never getting the loan itself. So if you're making a note, there's really only 2 things I would tell you to make a note of. 1, the deadline, January 13th, and 2, step 6, number 5. Make sure you have number 5, because if you have no economic loss listed, they will not give you any money because you're essentially saying it didn't cost you anything. And of course it did. It very much did. A lot of people just don't understand what they're asking for. I didn't at first. It's kind of confusing. So what you're going to do quickly with 5, you're going to break down what you would have gained if you had gotten the loan that you wanted to get or gotten the funding that you wanted to get. Say you if you could have gotten a loan, you would have gotten $100,000, $80,000, $50,000, whatever it might have been, depending on the time period and things like that. If you had gotten the loan, and for when did the loss occur, it's going to be a range. So it's going to be the year where you would have gotten the loan if they had given you a loan, and every year after, up until either you stopped farming or until 2021, because the cutoff of the application is 2021. So say 1990 is when you would have gotten the loan. So for the loss, you would put 1990, and you're still farming today, 1990 to 2021, or just dash to current. And for describing the loss, what you're going to do, and you can do this any way that makes sense for you, and I got to be quick. But let me give you an easy example. Say the loan that you got would have doubled your acreage. And you've worked out how much profit a year you made in the 90s. Say, $5,000, $10,000 a year in the 90s from 1990 to 1999. So if you had gotten the loan, and you kind of write this out and kind of do the math here, and this is all approximate numbers, is all estimated, it's theoretical. So you would say, if I'd gotten a loan in 1990, my annual profit was this, and if I gotten a loan, I was able to expand my farm to this size or in this way, it would have increased my profit by $3,000 a year. So then I would put 1990, 3,000, 1991, 3,000, right? 92, 93 each year. And that number will go up because of inflation. And so there's a couple ways you can do it. And you want to keep it as simple as possible for yourself. Like, you don't want to make this a huge project, but that's essentially what you're doing. You're calculating how much money, like I had one guy that just did it in pure forestry and acreage. He calculated he would have doubled the size of his land in 1990 if he had gotten the loan, which today would be worth, with that additional land, would be worth $300,000. And that's how he described his economic loss. A really easy way to do it. Other people that will do it yearly by profit. I would have made this much more. I was making this much more that year when I would have gotten a loan, and then add that up for each year all the way up until now, or till when I stopped farming, adding all of that up. But when you're adding it up, also do this. $2,000 in 1990, Google $2,000 in 1990 equals what in 2021. So, and you just Google that, it will spit out the exact dollar amount. So you'll put $2,000 in 1990 dash $15,000 2021, because that's what it'd be worth today. So adding up all the years, all of the profit up until this present day, or till the last year that you farmed, and totaling them up, all of that, D is where you're going to put that estimated value of loss, because that's what you've estimated you would have gained had you gotten that funding. That's what you would have done with the farm and how much money you would have made. That is your economic loss because of the discrimination of not getting a loan. Does that make sense? I know it's a little complicated, but you're essentially just calculating roughly, just estimates, how much more money, or how much more value your farm would be in 2021 had you gotten that loan in 1990 or 1980 or whenever it was that you would have gotten that funding. And then you get that total amount of estimated value of loss and plug that into D. And that's it. And if you guys have any questions, again, I got my email, my cell phone in the chat. Sorry for going over. I went over by like 10 minutes, but I really wanted to include that because it's a critically important step. Do not turn your application in without a number in D. Whatever that number is, you got to give them something to work with. Because if it's blank and you have no value of loss for any of step 6, then they're not going to give you any financial aid, because what you're essentially saying is them not giving you the loan didn't actually cost you anything, which it did, because you would have made more money if they had given you the loan. You would have expanded your farm. You would have had more crops. You would have all the things that you would have done. All that contributes and totals out to the total value of loss, looking at it today in 2023, almost 2024. Anita, question.
Yes, my question is, once the application's completed, I know there's an online version of the application. You can submit it electronically. And for those farmers that can't do it electronically, where do they mail it or where do they turn it in?
You can either Great questions. You can either bring a copy of it to the Petersburg office, or if you want to mail it directly, let me put the mailing address in the chat. And also, if you have time, if you want to, it's up to you, but we'd love to help applicants look over their application before they submit it. Give it one last kind of review, to see if we can spot anything missing or any mistakes, and we're happy to do that. But let me Google. I guess I can stop sharing. All right, let me Google the mailing address. I should have it.
And if
Should have it.
applicants participate in that review, is the review free or is there a fee?
Yeah,
or-
yeah, because again, what we do, we're contracted by the USDA. So the government contract paid us so that what we provide for farmers is completely free. So you can call us, you can come to our office and get help on your application every single day for the next 20 days in a row. It's going to be free every time. Us looking over your application and reviewing it with you, that's still technical assistance. That's free. Everything we provide is free. In fact, be wary of people, because there's been obviously a lot of scams with this whole program. Whenever there's money, there's scams. So you get an email asking for personal information, or asking for money or for services to help you with your application. Don't click on anything like that. It's probably a scam. Lawyers, you can have a lawyer, pay a lawyer to do it. Personally, I wouldn't, unless my situation was astronomically complex. Even then, I probably wouldn't, because they want 30 to 40%, which is insane. But if someone goes that route, there's nothing wrong with it. But you have us as a resource all the way up until the deadline, and it's free. And we'll help in any way we can. Let me try to pull up the mailing address for submitting East Coast applications. Okay, we're region 1. So I'm just going to copy and paste exactly what you want to put on the envelope as far as the address. And there we go. Put it in the chat. And sorry if I've missed questions in the chat. I'm not good at doing multiple things at the same time. All right.
As you look in the chat, I think that's pretty good. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns?
There we go. Address in the chat. And yeah, you guys have my cell phone. And again, we're doing another one. Me and Michael are doing another one January 2nd. And if there's I don't know what Michael's availability is, but we're available if there's a desire, people want another meeting before January 2nd, we can try to schedule something. So just talk to Michael and see if there's interest. I'm happy to do more of these, be whatever assistance I can be. Michael, thank you for organizing this and having me, and being able to help out these farmers.
Absolutely. And if anybody has any needs any assistance with like filling out the applications themselves, I know I got some really good administrators on the call who are excellent at what they do, and my team will be willing to sit with you on the phone or in person to kind of walk you through it and make sure it gets done and filled out right. And I'm sure, actually, I know the office at Petersburg will definitely be willing to do that as well with the Windsor group. So if there's any questions, concerns with this application, don't hesitate to give me a call, give me an email, shoot me a text. drop by my house or the farm, whatever you feel is most comfortable. Anyone else have any other questions? Yeah, share with your online farmer group. And again, if they have any questions, this is designed to be an informational session to deal with any information or misinformation that may be out there, to ask any and all questions concerns. This is actual official legislation to kind of offset some of the challenges that farmers have had, Black farmers especially, or socially disadvantaged farmers have had for debt relief. So this is a way to try to work around this, but this is not officially debt relief. This is financial assistance for discrimination claims. And it's through the Inflation Reduction Act of 2021, 2022. Yeah, so this is, official. It was really the only way they could pass some type of debt relief or support financially for Black farmers and other socially disadvantaged farmers without being sued.
Exactly.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts? We're going to do another one of these January 2nd. Right after the new year. The deadline is January 13th. You would like to get this in well beforehand. That way, if there's any errors, mistakes, corrections that need to be made, it can be done in a timely manner. You send it in on January 12th or January 13th. You're not going to be able to afford at that time to correct anything. All right. If no one had any questions, if all hearts and minds are settled, we'll move to close. Take you to Sunday church. Well, if there's no other questions, by all means, have a good night, everybody. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate all the information you have. Jonathan's information is in the contacts, in the chat there. We're going to send out a recorded version of this to everybody who registered, signed up, or made it a calendar, put it on the calendar, and we'll have all the links on that email as well. His email address, his phone number, the form links, the address to the office, etc. All right, well, everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
All right, Jonathan, I appreciate it.